Hello, and welcome to Unity of Fredericksburg. My name is Linda, and I'm pleased to welcome all of you to the Unity of Fredericksburg weekly online gathering. At Unity of Fredericksburg, we are advancing the movement of spiritual awakening and transformation through unity, a positive path for spiritual living. We thank those of you watching on YouTube, live or later, and invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're able to attend live, we encourage you to join us in the Zoom community room for the full Sunday morning experience, including music, prayer, and connection. Our weekly newsletter includes the Sunday service link, and you can subscribe to receive that on our website at uofva.org. For everyone local to Central Virginia, Unity of Fredericksburg offers a variety of fun and enriching in-person gatherings every month. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter at uofva.org for all the details. Our message today comes from our minister, Reverend Cheryl Fair. And now, here's Reverend Cheryl.
Thank you, Linda, and welcome, everyone who is here with me in the Zoom room right now, and those of you watching on YouTube, whether you're watching live or later, we appreciate you showing up and being a part of the energy that is Unity of Fredericksburg. Our broadcast date today is Sunday, May the 18th, and most of you who follow regularly know I like to start with a little tidbit. It might be a joke or a little news story or something. So I have a little news story from an email I received from a website called Spiritual Passages. And I use material from them and donate to that ministry regularly. So here's this piece of news. So today is the 18th. Tuesday, the 20th, marks 1,700 years since the Council of Nicaea was first called in the year 325. Now, many of us are familiar with the Council of Nicaea, whether we know it or not, because we may have grown up in church saying the Nicene Creed. And that was a statement of belief that was crafted by this historic council of over 300 Christian bishops in the year 325. So the Council of Nicaea was convened by the Emperor Constantine. And the reason he convened it is that he wanted to get some peace and unity in his empire because there were all these different groups bickering about Jesus, about how, what we think of Jesus. Was he divine? Was he a man? What do we think? And they were all bickering about it. And so he brought together, formed this council. And after an intense 2-month debate, the council declared Jesus is of the same substance as the Father, fully God. And that decision became the cornerstone of Christian doctrine that continues to this day. So on Tuesday, why don't you take a moment to reflect on all that was created by the Council of Nicaea and how the church they formed may or may not have influenced your life. And of course, here in Unity, Unity is a new thought ministry. Our goal and the goal of the founders of Unity was to go back even before the Council of Nicaea to really look at the foundational teachings of Jesus and form a spiritual path based on that. So that's what we are here about, is actually going back before the Council of Nicaea. All of this ties in with our annual theme here at Unity of Fredericksburg for 2025, which is creating conscious community. And particularly today, we're talking about the conscious part. So the affirmation that we share together on Sunday mornings every week is for 2025 is, as we expand our awareness and understanding of all that is, we joyfully create community with compassion and connection. So the first quarter of 2025, we really leaned into the compassion and connection part as we focused on the season for nonviolence. And then here in the second quarter, our focus on Sunday mornings in particular is on the first part, expanding our awareness and understanding of all that is. And in particular, the nature of the divine, and we are 100% divine all the time, and the nature of humanity. And we are 100% human all the time. That's the essential paradox of being human, right? Divine all the time, human all the time. Where are we going to put our focus? So today, we're looking at different ways in which we refer to the divine in unity and reflecting on the nuances of a few. There's way too many names and handles for the divine for us to cover in one talk, but we'll look at a few of those. And what we're doing is seeking to create an even more meaningful personal awareness of all that is. That's what we're working towards with this, these talks that we're having about what is the nature of the divine and the nature of me and how does that work. So hopefully that's a good plan for this morning. Before we really dive in, I feel like I have like 5 introductions here today. You know how I like to get into definitions, right? So we're going to be exploring, and my primary guide in the talk this morning is this wonderful book, Heart-Centered Metaphysics by the Reverend Dr. Paul Hasselbeck. And here he is, I was talking about my affection for definitions. Here he is in that book saying, it is important to realize that we cannot truly and fully define it, that being spirit or God or the sacred, since an experience of it is what is most important. So hopefully I can balance the two of those, of our efforts to intellectually define and lean into an experience, right? So here we go. Let's start with the big kahuna, the most common word for the divine that's been around for a long time, and that word being God, right? So some of us are very comfortable with using the word God. And if that is you, then please know that you are not being asked to do anything different. I'm just asking you to be aware that not everyone is comfortable using the word God. So I've got a little story that I can share with you about that from the minister that I learned the most from, the late, great Joyce Fisher Pierce, who was the senior minister at Unity of Bonaire in Richmond for 18 years or so. And she would share this story about, she grew up in a family that she described as atheist. There was no interest in religion. There was no interest in spiritual practice. And when she, as an adult, kind of became awake to things having to do with the divine, and she was talking with a mentor, and she was not comfortable with the word God, because she was just had no experience with it. And that person suggested, well, just call it whatever you want. I mean, just call it peanut butter. And so what Reverend Joyce did for years as she took her Unity classes and became more comfortable with the vocabulary of the divine, she referred to that which we call God as peanut butter. So I'm not suggesting you use peanut butter, but you can if you want, or whatever you want. So what we want to do in Unity is be a place where people on any spiritual path feel like they are welcome. So that the term inclusivity, not only referring to the manner in which we live our human lives, but an inclusivity of belief systems. So you might find the divine being referred to in an assortment of ways. And you might hear me using a string of labels for the divine. My hope when I do that, and you'll see that from a lot of Unity ministers, is that one of those words will be one that you go, oh yeah, that's what makes sense to me. It makes sense when she says divine love, or it makes sense when she says the energy of the universe or God. So first and foremost, in unity, we seek to use words that don't present the energy of the universe as a being, like an entity, a person, like that. So that's kind of that inclination is the urge to kind of make the divine in our own image, right? So, like a man sitting on a cloud, right? But hey, some people might say, wait a minute. We say that unity is based on the teachings of Jesus, and Jesus actively used the term father. Of course, in his language at the time, was likely using the word Abba. So it's like, well, what do we do with that? So in Heart-Centered Metaphysics, Paul Hasselbeck offers something from Charles Fillmore. Unity founder Charles Fillmore suggested that Jesus was not defining God when he spoke of the Father. He was naming his feeling of relationship with God. So, one of the things that Jesus was doing, and Jesus was quite the game changer. He was shaking things up in his time. And of course, all of the people he was talking to were Jews. They were deeply, seeped in the Old Testament, where the God is very authoritarian and you get punished if you do things wrong. So Jesus using that term, Abba, Father, was opening them up to an awareness of a personal relationship with or awareness of. So he had an intention with using that word. So, and the intention was not to create an image of a physical man, a man as the divine, but the relationship of energy that is indicated by the purest version of the word father. Doesn't work for everyone, right? Because not all of us have happy relationships with our human father. So um, the Unity founders they urge us away from these kinds of terms which anthropomorphize. I try not to use that word too many times because that's a mouthful, right? Again, kind of making the divine into a human image. So I've got a couple of quotes here for you. So this first one is from Emily Cady, the wonderful author of Lessons in Truth. Here she says, God is not a being or person having life, intelligence, love, power. God is that invisible, intangible, but very real something we call life. God is perfect love and infinite power. God is the total of these, the total of all good, whether manifested or unexpressed. So we tend in Unity to use words that don't make the divine sound like it's a man or a woman or something like that. Now, one of the words frequently used in Unity and by Unity founders was principle. All right, so let's hear a little bit about what they mean when they use that word principle, and we're talking principle, PLE, not PAL, like the principal of a school or something, but principle. All right, let's hear a little bit first from Charles Fillmore. We must relieve our minds of a personal God ruling over us in an arbitrary man-like manner. God is not person, but principle. And here is his wife, Myrtle Fillmore. We are studying spiritual science to get a broader conception of God rather than holding to the view that he is a personal being with parts like a man, a being subject to change and capable of varying moods. Though personal to each one of us, God is it, neither male nor female, but principle. God is not a cold, senseless principle like that of mathematics, but the principle of life, love, and intelligence. So the word principle is used a lot in Unity to describe the unchanging absolute nature of the universe. And of course, we are a reflection of that, or an expression of the energy of the universe. We have both thinking and feeling natures, right? So we can also make the necessary and logical assumption that the divine as principle also consists of both thinking and feeling natures. So we're not trying to make this into an intellectual exercise. So let's say you want to practice using the word principle and see how you like it. All right. So here are a couple of affirmations you could try. So just try them on, see what you think. I am the principle of love in action. Here's another one. The principle of life expresses in every cell in my body. So just take a breath. Take a breath right now. Let me ask you a few questions. So, how does that word principle feel for you? Does, when you use it, when you say it, does it resonate? If it does, where do you feel it in your body? And how does it resonate in your heart space? Just sit with those questions. Maybe think about it later, right? Because we're going to keep moving on, right? Our next word we're looking up in this voyage of vocabulary is source. So I like the word source. It feels like an unending reservoir of supply, ideas, energy. I don't know about you, but I think it helps us feel abundant and connected. Let me find, I've got a quote here, another quote from the wonderful Emily Cady. And let me get my glasses on here. Again, this is from Lessons in Truth. There is but one source of being. This source is the living fountain of all good, be it life, love, wisdom, power, the giver of all good gifts. You have the power to draw on this source for all of the good you are or ever will be capable of desiring. So, Emily Cady liked to use that fountain imagery, imagining the divine as a fountain and each one of us as little, tributaries off of this ever expressing fountain. So, let's look at how we can use the word source if you want to give that a try. How about this one? God is my source. Or give this one a try. The source of my good is ever present within me. So just take a breath. Take a breath and ask yourself, how does the word source feel for you? Does the thought of it kind of resonate? Do you get a little hum off of that? If you do, where do you feel it in your body? Does it resonate in your heart space? Just kind of see. All right. The next word we're going to play with here is the word spirit. Now, God is defined in the Bible just in two places. Jesus does it once for us when he defines God as love. And the other time God is defined, it is defined as spirit. Now, I think, I do have some opinions to throw in here or there. I think we need to be careful when we use the word spirit because often spirit is used when talking about individualized spirits, as in individual expression, individual personalities that are no longer here on Earth, but are still around, communicating at a level that some people can have access to and others don't really hear or notice. So I think we have to be careful if we're going to use the word spirit to indicate God. I used to hear in a Unity Center, it was frequently the beginning of prayers would say, "Sweet Spirit." And for me, it always felt like something outside of me, and like it was an energy entity of some sort. Let's get a couple of quotes on this, and you can, of course, as always, make up your own mind what you think. So here we go. These are both from Paul Hasselbeck. So divine mind or oneness is spirit, the infinite invisible essence of all life. Spirit is the activity of divine mind that underlies everything. So it's kind of like, I kind of like in pointing out that spirit is the activity. We express spirit by what we are being, not in what we are doing, through the practice of identifying oneself with source. One realizes spirit. So it does for me feel a little bit different than a straight up name for the divine. And that doesn't mean that we wouldn't want to play with it, give it a try, see how it feels. So here's a couple of affirmations using that word. I joyfully express the spirit of zeal. I kind of like that because that is kind of talking about activity, right? So, and if we go with what Paul Hasselbeck said, the activity of the divine we call spirit, you think of it as moving and doing, right? Or here's another one. I use the essence of spirit to settle my senses. I like that one when it came to me because, we do get ourselves agitated, right? Our human senses get stirred up. I like the image of tapping into that essence of spirit to calm and settle. I have the image of Jesus saying, peace, be still, right? So take a breath, take a breath. Let's ask ourselves, how does the word spirit feel to you? Does it resonate? And if it does, do you feel it in your body? Do you feel it in your heart space? Does it feel intellectual? What do you think? That, of course, is for you to answer for yourself, right? All right, we've got a couple more. How about the term divine mind? So we know that we experience what we call mind on a personal level, right? Like with a little m in our personal lives, right? I'm going to make up my mind. Do I want this or that? And divine mind is like mind with a big M, right? Divine mind is in the metaphysical. So in my personal mind, I can be, making a decision. Do I want chicken or fish? Divine mind is in the invisible, the realm of ideas. And we will often talk about in Unity about the universe, the nature of God being an infinite field of potential that is just composed of divine ideas that we can tap into to manifest our personal lives. So let's hear a little bit of wisdom from the handy dandy book here about divine mind. So here's Paul Hasselbeck saying, our seeming individual mind is a state of consciousness in the one mind. It is a state of consciousness that erroneously believes it is separate from oneness. And that is true, isn't it? Our human brains absolutely believe in separation. And yet I'm here every Sunday to attempt to draw you into an awareness that there is in spiritual truth only oneness. All right, one more quote on divine mind. Again, this is from Paul Hasselbeck. In studying the terms and concepts pertaining to divine mind, we are not seeking so much to learn about divine mind or beingness as we are to deepen our experience and realization of it. So, as we do, we become aware that divine mind is the truth of us and therefore is always available for us to use in every facet of our lives. So, our personal minds function like divine mind because it is divine mind. So, let's try it out, right? Here are a couple affirmations if you wanted to play with this term divine mind. Divine mind is the truth of what I am. Here's another one. Brilliant ideas are mine through divine mind. So just take a breath. Reflect on this term divine mind. How does it feel for you? Does it resonate with you? Does it resonate on an intellectual level? Do you feel it in the body, the heart? Sound like something you want to give a try? Who knows, right? Only you know. All right. Last handle for that which we call God and that we're going to do today, and this is the basis for my title, is good. My title today is It's All Good, isn't it? So from scripture, when the Old Testament, the God of the Old Testament, completes the process of creation, all that is created is called good. Yeah. And then in the New Testament, Jesus numerous times refers to and describes the Father as good, numerous times, that energy of the universe as being good. So let's get a couple of quotes. So we've got um, some more wisdom coming through here. I'm flipping through pages so I can find, I think I might as well just read this whole page to you, but instead I'll do some excerpts. So here is from Charles Fillmore. God as principle is the absolute good expressed in all creation. Boom, there you have it. Here's Emily Cady. God is not a being having qualities, but God is the good itself. Everything you can think that is good, when in its absolute perfection, goes to make up that invisible beingness we call God. And one more from Paul Hasselbeck. Unity's first premise concerning divine nature is that divine mind, the absolute omnipresence, is good. It is good without an opposite. So when we hear this, and I know when I first arrived in Unity, I heard God is good all the time. Our human brains might speak up with some objections, right? So, well, what about this circumstance? What about that circumstance? How can we say it's all good? Because in our human lives, things happen, right? Weather happens, tornadoes happen, floods happen, and then there are all these people out there making choices, and we have no control over that, do we? So, and a lot of it doesn't feel good. And of course, when we're saying that, when we're reflecting on that, that is from our human perspective. We go, this is not good. What are you talking about? It is a kind of a bit, difficult. How do we negotiate this? So here's a little bit more wisdom from Paul Hasselbeck. When we say that divine mind or oneness is all good, everywhere present, it does not mean that everything we see or experience in the relative world, that's our human life, is good. It simply means that the good underlies everything as divine ideas and is ever available regardless of the situation. We do well, however, to remember that the source is truth and decide to see only good and express only truth in every situation. And then he has, I love to ask questions, and here he is with a couple of questions. So when you find yourself in a circumstance that clearly is not feeling good, doesn't look good, you're witnessing something and going, that's a terrible thing that someone did. One question you can ask yourself is, what am I making this mean? Or how do I use this for good? Because we always have a choice. no matter what situation is showing up, of how we can see the good and use things for good, right? So let's play with this word a little bit more. Here's a couple of affirmations. If you would like to use the word good, try that out if you haven't done it before. Here's an affirmation. As I open my spiritual eyes, I find the good. Or here's another one. Good is here for me in every circumstance. And that's certainly something you can toy with when you're having an experience that doesn't feel good, is working to find that good. So that kind of reflects the essential optimism that shows up in New Thought spiritual paths. Now, we don't want to use it to bypass acknowledging when things are difficult, but it certainly gives us a good and healthy reminder of the good that is always present. So how does that term good, or calling the divine goodness, how does that feel for you? Does it resonate for you? And if it does, is it kind of intellectual, or you feel it in your body or your heart? Notice your own pattern too, because as we learn when we study things like the Enneagram, we each kind of have a personality pattern of how we acquire and process information. And using a different word might help you to open up to a greater experience. So no matter what word you use, the energy of the universe and all that is your true nature, beloveds, each and every one of you. And whatever name you use is good. You know, at the beginning of the prayer template that Jesus provides, that's often called the Lord's Prayer, kind of says at the beginning, and of course this has all been interpreted and languaged and stuff, but the Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed by any name. So by any name you use, it's sacredness, beingness, oneness, divine love, whatever you use, it is, in fact, all good. So let's take all of that stirring around and take it into a time of meditation. So I invite you to just kind of take a few deep breaths, pay attention to the breath moving in and out of the body. And if you wish, you can allow your outer eyes to drift closed. As we move into a time of stillness together, I'm going to read to us from Myrtle Fillmore's Healing Letters. God is life. We make that life into living. God is love. We make divine love into loving. God is substance. We take the substantial reality and bring it through into the manifest world. God is wisdom. We claim oneness with divine wisdom, and it expresses through us as wise thoughts and decisions and actions. The light of life that glows from my heart and face and, yes, every cell of the body. And let's move into a time of stillness together. And as we begin to bring our focus back to the here and now, just feel the breath in the body again. Pay attention to the gentle pressure of your feet on the floor, your body in the seat. Feel the air against your skin. As we move forward into our day, reflecting on all of these different names for that which we call God, we do that knowing that that energy of the universe, no matter what we call it, all that is present and alive in every circumstance and within us as we show up as I am, the spirit of the activity of the divine. So let's close out our time of meditation with a simple affirmation. We've used this one before. I keep coming back to it this quarter, and it is simply this: God is, I am, and I am grateful. Say it with me, my friends. God is, I am, and I am grateful. I am grateful, my friends, and I see you as grateful as you move through your day. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm going to turn it back to our friend Linda now.
Thank you, Reverend Cheryl. And thank you for watching the weekly broadcast from Unity of Fredericksburg. Visit our website, uofva.org, to learn more about our mission of spiritual awakening and transformation, and support our ministry with your financial donation.